The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Indiana head football coach Curt Cignetti made massive headlines during Big Ten Media Days for calling out the SEC.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, and I mean everybody, is talking about as your head man, your head coach, Curt Cignetti, took the stage at Big Ten Media Days. And we knew somebody was going to ask this sort of a question right about the recent cancellation with the home and home with the Virginia Cavaliers. And it's something that has kind of gone under the radar a little bit. Not a ton of people talked about it, but we figured a question would come about it. And I said yesterday on the show, if you listened or watched the show yesterday that we put out here on Locked On Hoosiers, I'm going to take claim that I was right. Kind of. I said that Curt Cignetti was going to make a statement at Big Ten Media Days because he always does. In this sort of a situation, man, he comes off as a guy that doesn't like the spotlight, but he loves the spotlight, okay? He loves these sort of situations and these times to be the focus of attention, to be the one with all the say, all the power with the microphone in his hand. And I said on the show yesterday that Cignetti was going to make a statement at Big Ten Media Days. Now, the statement that I predicted was incorrect. I said that he would make a statement that they would go on the road to beat Oregon or Penn State just to call one of those teams out around the conference. Instead, Curt Cignetti went for a bigger fish. He went for a bigger fan base, and that is one of the Southeastern Conference. Somebody asked him on the stand. They said, you guys recently announced that you canceled a future home and home series with Virginia. Can you talk about why that happened? And here's what Curt Cignetti had to say. This is verbatim. This is the transcript. Are you ready? He says, quote, look, here's the bottom line. We picked up an extra home game and we played 9 conference games. The two best conferences in college football, anybody would tell you it's the Big Ten and the SEC. 12 of the 16 SEC teams play 3 G5 or an FCS game. 12 of those teams play 36 games, 29 G5 games, and 7 FCS games, and 1 less conference game. He goes on, and this is the statement that got him in trouble. He says, so we figured we would just adopt the SEC scheduling philosophy. Boom. Mic drop. Place is like, oh, snap. That goes viral. Everybody tweets it out and everybody starts losing their minds. He says again, so we figured we would just adopt the SEC scheduling philosophy. Yikes, man. That is unbelievable that he stepped up there and had the stones to say something like that because, man, did he make some enemies around the Southeastern Conference. Let me finish his thought here. He says, some people don't like it. I'm more focused in on those 9 conference games. Not only do we want to play 9 conference games and have the 4-4 championship, the playoff format, we want to have play-in games to decide who plays in those college football playoffs. More on that in just a moment. But the fact that Curt Cignetti decided to go up there and, again, have the nads, if you will, to call out the Southeastern Conference for how they schedule, the fact that they don't play 9 conference games and they'd rather just play weak FCS G5 teams, I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I don't know how Mr. Petitti feels about it, the Big Ten commissioner, but I love the idea that Cignetti just says, I don't care. I've got something on my mind. You asked me about it, so I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I love that from our head football coach because he has proven that in his very short time being here at Indiana, but I think he's proven that over his entire career. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what you say. He doesn't care what you write. He doesn't care what I say. If he's got something on his mind, he's going to say it. And I like that he took a stance on this. And the fact of the matter is, he's probably one of the few in the Big Ten across the board that's willing to stand up there in the biggest media event of the year and answer that question the way that he did and call out the Southeastern Conference while doing so. I think everybody across college football pretty much agreed with what he had to say, unless you're one of the 16 teams in the college football or in the SEC. Those fans lost their minds. They could not stand to be called out the way that they did. And I saw a bunch of people, right, calling him out and saying, what does the head coach of Indiana have to do with any of this? How does he have a say in what's going on? What, they have one good year and all of a sudden they feel invincible. Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, he's had more than just one good year in his resume. But Curt Cignetti just doesn't care, man. And the fact that he was able to go up there, answer the question, and be honest about it, and then kind of defend it a little bit by laying out what he wants to the end of the season to look like with playing games and the playoff and things like that. More on that in a moment. I love that from our head coach. Because now, if you hadn't already or you didn't feel this way yet, you do now from the outside looking in. Curt Cignetti is must-see TV, man. Curt Cignetti, when he speaks, you listen. And there are coaches, very few around our sport that are that way. But I think Curt Cignetti's starting to earn that. And hopefully some of his Big Ten brethren are going to back him up the rest of the way of this week, because there's still some to go today and some to go tomorrow. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to continue to hammer home to the SEC that you must play 9 conference games like everybody else. You're not special. I don't care that you play Vanderbilt, okay, and Kentucky on your schedule. That doesn't matter to me. Play an extra game. Play an extra game. Let's play some conference versus conference. That's my whole suggestion. I've been saying that for a while. My buddy Spencer McLaughlin, I think, is in agreement with me. I've locked on college football, where let's play 9 conference games across the board every season in every conference, in the major conferences, right? Big Ten, SEC play 9. And then your 10th game of the season is against the other conference. Why don't we have the SEC and the Big Ten make a deal like an SEC Big Ten challenge like we see in basketball, and Indiana plays Tennessee? All right, we'll play them in Knoxville, then they'll come and see us in Bloomington. All right, the next year, Indiana's going to play Alabama. All right, cool. We'll go to Tuscaloosa, and then Alabama can come here to Bloomington. And you put it on a 2-year rotator, and then you have your extra big-time game and all these hypothetical matchups that the SEC loves to talk about that they feel they're undefeated in. We can actually have some of those play out on the field. That's my suggestion. And there's more on that as we go, but I love Curt Cignetti. Clearly, I love Curt Cignetti and what he's doing and the way that he represents IU, the way he represents the Big Ten. And I'm just glad that he, unlike most, had what it takes to step up there, call out Greg Sankey, and call out the big dogs in the Southeastern Conference. Good for you, Curt Cignetti.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Carson Beck takes the reins as Miami's new quarterback one.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
First and foremost, Carson, how you liking Miami, the whole city, everything that comes with that so far?
Man, I love it. Obviously, it's a big city, a great culture as far as the football team goes. And, you know, being around Coach Cristobal, being around the guys, it's been awesome.
And Coach reminded me that this is kind of a full circle thing for you, because you were briefly committed to Miami, you know, out of high school at Mandarin, and now you find yourself a Hurricane. Do you ever kind of look back and reflect on those times?
Well, just being from Florida in general, to, you know, ultimately come back home and be in the state where I grew up in, it's very exciting. I'm very, very much looking forward to getting into fall camp, getting out there with the guys and finally being able to practice and just ultimately lead us into the season.
Everybody's curious to know how you're doing physically. The last time we saw you in a game, you had the injury, you've had the surgery. Like, how is the elbow and how is everything from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, it's doing great. I've been 100% for a while. Obviously, that journey was difficult. It was tough and it very challenging physically, mentally, in all aspects. And then ultimately changing schools as well through that, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot thrown on my plate, but, I have a really good support system. And coming down to this school and how accepting the guys have been, how accepting the coaches have been, have really made that transition simultaneous for me. And I think ultimately helped me as, I was trying to get back into it and ultimately fully recover the injury.
So for these last, couple months for you, since you've had all the full clearance, you've been throwing, you've been working out, what have these workouts been like for you? And have you had a chance to get together with the guys you're going to be throwing to this season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think our off season has been awesome. I mean, Coach Irv stepped in for us, as far as like the strength and conditioning side of things. The conditioning has been tough. It's hot down there in Miami.
Yes,
the humidity is killer. But man, we've been working as a team. And then outside of that, from more of a player-led perspective and our player-led practices and things like that, being able to get in reps with the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs. We're having meetings where, I'm leading the meetings and, the wide receivers are in there. We're going over the intricacies of routes and, progressions and what I'm seeing so that they can see the same thing. Just trying to rapidly build that chemistry, which I think we've done really well. And not only does that come from my side, but I think it comes from their side as well, right? The attention to detail, the focus, the mindset and mentality that wide receiver group has, right? Because the more, susceptible they are to, gaining information and wanting to learn, the better we're going to be. And I think that their mentality has been right on track with that.
Talk to me about some of these guys, from CJ Daniels to JoJo Trader to other guys who were in that room. Just tell me about kind of what makes these guys tick and what makes them special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is kind of what I just said, is that mentality piece, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that have something to prove, and that pushes them, right? Not only from that aspect, but also just wanting to learn and be the best that they possibly can be, and putting full trust in me to, help them and teach them, and then ultimately them teaching me as well from their perspective, right? So, it's kind of this like give and take from the wide receiver group and me, and, just ultimately trying to be the best that we can be and, meeting at the top of the pyramid.
So, you, of course, come from a marquee program in Georgia, and obviously there's a certain way that things are done up there. So like how different is it in Miami, and how much of sort of your mentality that you've built the last few years, how much of that have you been able to translate here in Coral Gables?
Yeah, absolutely. Being at Georgia for 5 years.
That many years, huh?
5 years.
Time flies, man.
It does fly. But I mean, obviously the culture and what Coach Smart has built at Georgia is one of its own. And I'm super thankful to have been a part of that, right? And learn from a guy like him. I wouldn't be the player that I am without him being a coach of me, right? And in more ways than just football, but also just being a man and in life and all those things, and learning life lessons through all the years that I was there, right? But, now being in Miami, being able to take, what I learned there and my experiences and playing in big games and being around top players that are now excelling in the NFL, right? Just being able to take my experience and, bring it to Miami and, try to lead these younger guys that are here and, establish and, kind of mesh into the culture that's already been built at Miami and what Coach Cristobal has been building over the past couple of years. It's been a lot of fun. And, I'm excited to, continue, building that, with this team.
Something that I imagine made, playing at Miami appealing to you, not to put words in your mouth, but that offensive line, it's expected to be one of the better units in the entire country. Carson, what are your impressions, your early looks on, from guys like CC Maui Noah, who's here, big Markel Bell, who's going to be covering your blind side? How confident do you feel in that O-line?
Yeah. I mean, you look at them and they're huge, right? They fit the part, they fit the eye test, they pass it very well. But what I love about them is we get done with our PLPs or our workouts and the whole O-line's out there getting an extra work, right?
Good.
So not only looking at them where it's like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to play behind these guys, but you see the work that they put in, not only like in our allotted time, but the extra overtime, right? And then I believe we have one of the best O-line coaches in the country, and the way that he's able to push those guys and the way that they respect him and trust him. I mean, the sky's the limit for them, and they lead this team for sure.
Transitioning into Shannon Dawson's offense, how similar is it, to what you were in Georgia, and what are some aspects of that offense, without giving away too many trade secrets, of course, that are appealing to you as a quarterback?
Of course. Well, I mean, offense is offense at the end of the day, right? Most people run the same concepts, the same run schemes, right? There's inside zone, there's duo, there's counter, there's power, there's outside zone, mid zone. I mean, all these different run schemes, right? And then there's your pass schemes, right? That everybody runs. You got your 4 verticals, your mesh, your cross, I could go on and on and on, right? But I don't know. Really what I've loved about Coach Dawson is his demeanor and the way that he approaches coaching us, right? Obviously, he hasn't really had the opportunity to coach me yet on the field, right? Because I wasn't practicing during spring, and then summer is a lot of player-led stuff, right? But just, observing him and how he approaches it, I really, really love. Obviously, as we get into the season and I learn more about how he game plans and how he calls things from a schematic standpoint, that'll be, us building throughout the season. Obviously, I haven't been around him for that because I haven't ever had a season underneath him. But I'm really excited to, continue to learn from him and ultimately get coached by him this season.
What are your team goals for this year? Is this something you guys have talked about, or how do you look at the season coming up, Carson?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is just trying to take things just one step at a time. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my career, honestly, is just one day, try to get better today. And then when tomorrow comes, we'll get better tomorrow, So obviously the next thing in sight is fall camp for us. So I think if we have a really, really elite fall camp, it'll set us up for this season. We have a great schedule. We're really excited about it. We're playing some really good teams. But yeah, if we can have an elite fall camp, I think it'll really set us up for the rest of the season.
Now, talk to me about that running back room. I was just chatting with Coach Cristobal about it. When you've got Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle and Marty Brown, who transfers into a lot of personal excitement for me. I think he's a great player. Wheatley Humphrey, Gerard Pringle. I mean, I would expect this can be a really balanced offense this year.
Oh, absolutely. And then you pair it with that O-line, like I said, that, leads the way of this team with very talented backs. It makes my job a lot easier, which I'm more than excited about, right? I have no problem with sitting there and handing the ball off and watching them go get 5, 6. Then in the third, fourth quarter, those 5, 6 yard runs are 10, 12. Next thing you know, breakaway, right? That makes my job easy when we have a good run game. They're more influenced to stack the box. It opens up the pass, right? Offense works in that way. It's like a chess match, right? You take what the defense is giving you, and when we're able to run the ball efficiently, it ultimately opens up the pass game. So
now, I don't know if Cuban coffee was a part of your life in Athens, Georgia.
It is
in
now.
Jacksonville. I was about to say, I'm sure Coach Cristobal got you into that.
Absolutely. I'm a huge coffee guy in general. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, since I've been down in Miami, I have been introduced to Cuban coffee, and it now runs my life. So.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Mike Locksley said what?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps.
Mike Locksley made some comments during Big Ten Media Day that honestly I did not like at all. It's that time of year. We're at Big Ten Media time where we start hearing from all the coaches, and there's a lot of chit chat, and there are a lot of people getting ready for next season. Like, we're almost in August. Games are played in August, so we're really not that far away from watching a college football season. And we're going to get fall camp, and hopefully we're going to get some more headlines. And what comes with that is Big Ten Media Day. And the thing to me, in my opinion, about Big Ten Media Day, it's kind of like one of those lose-lose situations. You say what you're supposed to say, and hopefully you get out of there without making any real comments or making any real headlines, and nobody's really talking about you coming out of Big Ten Media Day, or you make a fool out of yourself. But there's not really much good that can happen from Big Ten Media Day. Like, there's nothing really Mike Locksley could have said to us at Big Ten Media Day where we would like, wow, Mike Locksley sounds so well thought out. Like, that's an awesome statement. Like, there's like very few, like, that's pretty rare for you to come after a media day. Like, most of them are media trained, so they're not going to say anything too crazy. You're not going to get too much. But Mike Locksley gave us a little something that was really surprising that he said. And there's definitely been some bad things said at Big Ten Media. There's been coaches that say too much. I remember last year, I want to say the UCLA coach, he got up there, didn't know what he was saying. Like, you got to be prepared. I don't know if you guys remember that. It blew up pretty hard on the Instagram, but there's just a lot of bad and a lot of headlines that can happen. And this just happened for Maryland football. So I don't know how big of a national headline it's going to get. A lot of people don't really talk about Maryland football, let's be fair, but we care. And in terms of Maryland football headlines, this is kind of a big one. So to me, I really didn't like his comments, but he went up there, and we'll get into the rest of it. I want to focus on this. And he mentioned that he lost the locker room last year. Fully admitted that he didn't have the locker room last year. Fully admitted it, said it. You can go back and watch it, go back and look. Mike Locksley said, I didn't have the locker room last year. I lost the locker room. To me, that's not something you say. Not something you say. I think the image of the Maryland program doesn't need that. We are not a team that's going to get 4 or 5. We're no 4 or 5 stars. We're no Ohio State. We're no Michigan. We're not that type of team. Like, what we have to win at is being in an environment that everyone cares, that everyone's going to work hard, that there's nothing given, and that especially the coaching staff has to have control over the players. You get to some programs in today's, and you got the quarterbacks making more than a lot of the assistant coaches, or guys are making more NIL money than a lot of players or a lot of people on the coaching staff. And you can see how players can get a little bit entitled and everything. But as a program, for us, that can't happen. Mike Locksley cannot lead a program where he loses the locker room. That cannot happen at all. And so there's levels to this. First, I want to start off with what I was saying. I don't know why he admitted that. Don't know why he admitted it. That's something I feel like you kind of keep it in-house, because nobody really, I mean, I guess we had assumptions off of last year where Locksley doesn't seem to be coaching right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it has the last couple of years. It felt like last year's team was pretty talented. When you go back, look on paper, most guys drafted in the NFL, like, there's talent on that team. Like, Billy Edwards, decent quarterback, but talented. Our receiving room, Ty Felton Prather, talented. A running back room, Roman Hemby, Nolan Wright, talented. Defensive back, some of those guys, Dante Trader, talented. Defensive line, 2 guys drafted, Jordan Phillips, Tommy King Basote, talented, but it didn't end up working out. And to me, Locksley, so we made assumptions. We were like, okay, our team's talented. Like I mentioned, all those different players. It's not like all world or anything, or a top 20 team in the country, but it's talented, and it's not working out. And it worked out the last couple of years. And so we made assumptions. I came on here and said, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know. It starts at the top at Mike Locksley for me, but I just don't know why you would admit that. I don't know the benefit of admitting it. Maybe he felt like he needed to get it off his chest. Maybe it's kind of an excuse for him for last year. I don't know. But to me, it was something that didn't need to be said. Didn't need to be said. I don't think we needed to hear that. I mean, obviously, it's honestly, it's good for me. It gives me something to talk about, something new, something original, something that doesn't happen every single day to talk about. But it's just something to me that you should have left out. It's something that you just don't really mention. It's something you keep on the low if you think that, and you keep it in-house with your team, and you say, okay, last year, guys, I lost the locker room. Guys didn't believe me. Whatever the case is, that's not going to happen this year. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to have you guys. You guys are all going to have trust in me in those different things. I don't see the benefits. I don't know if he was kind of wanting us to make an excuse for him. Like, he doesn't strike me as that type of guy. And he's just being completely honest with us, which is kind of beneficial for us. It's good to know. But it's just like, to me, when there's outside like recruits looking at the program, like they read that type of stuff. And you don't want a coach that ever loses the locker room. A coach could be, that's a mark of a good coach. If your team is bad, if the coach still, if players still believe in him and everything like that, that's a mark of a good coach that can do stuff motivationally. Like football, a lot of it's the X's and O's, but a lot of it's the motivation. You think Nick Saban at Alabama ever lost the locker room? No. You think Coach Kirby at Georgia, you think he ever has lost the locker room for like a season? No, it doesn't happen. Maybe you lose it for a time or moments, like things happen, but you got to get it back. And that's something that it's a culture shock to me, where I always kind of thought our culture was really changing in a beneficial way for Maryland football, where now I'm looking at it and I'm like, are we going the right direction? Are we doing the right things? Are we on the right track? Are things happening like we need them to happen? I just don't know. And so it brings up a lot of question marks to me about Mike Locksley. And I think I view him differently because I never thought of him as a coach that would lose the locker room. So to me, it was a little bit shocking and a little bit interesting. So I don't really know. And this is kind of what he said on the 2025 team and learning from 2024. He said, when you think about our team, here's what I'll tell you. This, for me, kind of year is what I like to call vulnerability. One of the greatest characteristics you can have as a leader is ability to be vulnerable. And I tell you, a year ago, Coach Locks lost his locker room. And for me to stand in front of a group in media and tell you that I lost my locker room, and it wasn't because I wasn't a good coach. It wasn't because they weren't good players. It's because we were better than a 4-win team. Makes total sense. So I get that. And so you can kind of push back to a little bit of what I was saying, but still, it's just such a headline that he knows people are going to misconstrue that and people are going to say it in different ways. And I do guess that's fair. But to me, like I mentioned before, mark of a good coach is no matter how many games you're winning, no matter how many games you're losing, you still have more. You still have the locker room. And we were better than a 4-win team last year, but that doesn't mean that you can say that. And he continues this quote by saying, but what we have to do is we had haves and haves not for the first time in our locker room. And the landscape of college football has taught me a valuable lesson. And that valuable lesson is important for me, even in the midst of this change, to continue to educate our players on the importance of what playing for something bigger than yourself is all about. And so he continues to kind of talk about how now they have this thing now. They have these signs outside of the Maryland locker room that says, leave your Louis, your belts, your car keys, and your financial statements outside. So clearly a lot of this is about the NIL money and the NIL market. That's extremely important. And Mike Locksley said, leave that stuff outside. I don't want this year anyone to be thinking about the NIL. I don't want anyone thinking about, oh, this guy has that. Oh, this guy has, oh, this type of car. Oh, this guy's making $500,000. He wants to say, and I have no problem with this part of his section and them having a sign like that, because I think that's important in today's college football culture. I think it's so important that you have equal people fighting, because people get stagnant. Money makes people stagnant. If I was a college, or I am a college athlete, but if I was a Division I football player making $1 million, let's say, I might get a little stagnant. I might start looking at the money and say, oh, this looks nice. Like, I don't have to do as much. It's important that everyone feels the competition, whether you're making $0 through the money or you're making $3 million. I don't think anyone on Maryland's roster is making $3 million, but you know what I mean? Like, there's guys on that team where he says the haves and have nots is the first kind of time they've had that. There's guys on that team that are making like real money. Like a kid like Malik Washington, you think that guy doesn't have a good NIL deal with Maryland and they're paying him a good amount? They are. And you think that they're paying the same thing as our fifth? You think he's getting the same as fifth string quarterback? Like, no. There are people that have and there are people that don't have, and that's just what college football is today. But he wants everyone to leave that stuff outside. Obviously, everyone knows that stuff exists, but you got to leave that stuff outside and kind of let everyone kind of still do their thing. So it's interesting how Locksley talked about it. I do kind of believe in that, but I'm still surprised he said, I lost the locker room last year. Still surprised about it, because even though he says it's not because he's wasn't a good coach or whatever the case is, it was just because they were better than a 4-win team. That has to fall on somebody. You're not just worse than what you're supposed to be just because. Unless you want to say Maryland was terrible last year on paper and they should have never been anywhere. Like, you don't just do that, because I'm sure there were decisions that he was making that the players didn't like. There was decisions he was making that I didn't like. So it's kind of an interesting topic, but I am really surprised, and I wish he didn't say that. I just feel like it's such a headline. People really are going to read that quote and be like, oh, like, I don't really love it. That's kind of how I thought about it. So I think it's not really going to be a distraction. Nobody will talk about it in a week or two, but I do think it's something that's interesting that he said that he lost the locker room, and he kind of gives us more into why we struggled last year.